Hello, my friends. This is actor Sanjay Madhav here. Going to talk about. Not going to talk about digital marketing, which a lot of is my field, and a lot of videos are there on that, and other works that I do, and other businesses that I'm involved with. But I do want to talk about my tinnitus because a lot of you will have this question, which I have, but I've had it for 6 years now. So I've been through habituation and in and out of habituation and so on. So you kind of learn over time how it gets affected. I guess I get it, everyone's a little different, but how it gets affected by certain things. So what I'm going to talk about is travel, because I travel a lot, and how that affects my tinnitus. Right now I'm having a flare up. Because I've had a cold, so I traveled. I wear earplugs on the plane. They don't recommend you do that, but I do it because I find it to be loud. So I do wear earplugs to not have the jet noise for 5-6 hours blaring at me. And but yes, it does mess up your what do you call them, estration? Pronounce that correctly? Extrusion. Things in the ear and the inner ear, and also it causes sinus congestion, which I have. Actually, not from the traveling. I'm sure it's from this cold that I have. So I'm taking the nasal decongestant Sudafed. But I'm looking for the effect. So you probably already aware, or you would be, if you went to sites and researched it, or went up to some sites like AmericanTinnitusAssociation.org, you'll find some information on sinus pressure and that trauma that it can pose to structures of the inner ear. I'm just reading some things off their site here while I record. They say that nasal congestion, like as is from a cold, like which I have, can impact the inner ear and normal hearing and cause tinnitus symptoms. I'm sure what I have in my case is a flare-up of, it's subjective, but the flare-up of symptoms that will probably relieve, in a few more days once the cold goes away and the symptomatic sinus congestion goes away. But in the meantime, I'm not going to worry about it because I've been through this before, and I know that it does tend to give you a spike of symptoms with your tinnitus, but it freaks people out. It does say, oh, did something get worse? Especially in the earlier stages, we're still hyper alert. Did it get worse? No, we just have some sinus pressure and nasal decongestion, which is affecting something there in blockage and structurally, pressure in the inner ear, and just hasn't resolved yet a few days after even returning to the home after my flight. But again, I think cold is probably prolonging that a little bit. And it's funny because if you looked at my other videos and seen what are my interests, you probably already know that I'm an avid scuba diver. So I never have these problems with diving. I will make sure I'm very mindful of always doing the clearing of the nasal passages as you do as a diver. That is the swallowing and the blowing and so on and so on. For someone who may not know what I'm referring to, that divers do. And so it's never bothered me. As I've been diving, I would always hear my bubbles going up from my own breathing, air bubbles coming up, and that's it. And I've been down to 130 feet and never felt that any worse than anything in my tinnitus or hyperacusis. So, but again, this time I'm noticing with the flight, I think it's the combination of the flight and being sick at the same time, and eventually arriving and finding my ears completely plugged up because I've had this earplug and the pressure from the plane, and now I have some plugged ears and nasal congestion just from having the cold, and sort of taken the spike and just kind of been dragging it on a little longer. It's frustrating, I know, but I'm not going to freak out because I know it'll go back to normal. Probably another, by the end of the week, once most of the cold symptoms go away, and we'll kind of be back to normal. But I'm also trying the Sudafed to see if that helps. Not so much with the congestion itself, part of it from the cold, but with the congestion part of it causing the tinnitus to be more noticeable. So, a lot of tinnitus sufferers, I hate to use that word, but how else am I going to relate to it? You guys easily, words, terminology you've already heard very well. Just something for you guys to know that this can happen. Expect it if you fly. It doesn't happen to everyone. Everyone's different. Expect it when you fly. Expect it when you get a cold. People that I know that I've developed good communication with that have also have tinnitus tell me a lot, and it's my experience too, that when they get a cold, it seems like the tinnitus gets worse, again, subjectively. It's blocking the nasal passages, the sinus congestion there. So it seems symptomatically like the tinnitus is getting worse. But the good news is it's temporary. 2 weeks later, when the cold is gone, things are kind of back to level set to your normal for your tinnitus. But yes, you kind of do sometimes have to suffer there for a week or 10 days and go, okay, it's kind of worse. We're used to spikes. We don't mind them, right? We just don't like them when they're a week long or 2 weeks long. By the way, before I close, I will add this. As I've progressed in my habituation, I notice that when I do have spikes, the duration of them is getting shorter and shorter. Because I travel quite a bit, and so I fly quite a bit, and I wear earplugs a lot when I'm in the plane. And over the years, it's been about 6 years now, I guess, since I've had this. Over the years, I have noticed that every flight and every trip, I get a little spike. When I land at my destination, when I return home, and sometimes it's just for a few hours or a day or two, but there's definitely some cases where I've had a spike that seemed to have lasted for 2 weeks or 4 weeks after returning, but eventually it did return to normal. And just want you to know that can be the case. Although, of course, you will get very anxious, particularly after the first week, and thinking that did my vacation, did I do or hear, or was I exposed to something during my vacation? Some loud sounds or what have you, whatever that has actually now made my tinnitus worse because I have more damage that's caused in my inner ear hair cells. I mean, you start questioning yourself, right? 9 times out of 10, more like 9, at least 9.5 or more times out of 10, the answer is no. You're just still in the spike phase, and so you're letting your brain spin about it. And we already know how the cycle works, right? The more you think about it, the more subjectively symptoms start to elevate, and the cycle goes and goes and goes and goes. Knowing that, we want to bring it down. The conscious mind now stop catastrophizing, start trying to predict in the future. Did it get worse? Is it going to be worse? I'm going to have to live like this? Worse than what it was before I went on this trip. We've all done that as it relates to tinnitus and many other things in life. Pull the reins, pull the reins, pull the reins. Start training the brain. Go meditate, go exercise, do something. As much as you have to. Okay? But I've definitely had times where I've traveled, like I said, and I said, oh, it's been 2 weeks since I came back from this trip. Still seems very elevated and like in the spike stage. Well, that's depressing. It's always gone back to normal. Given time. Take encouragement in that. I'm Sanjay Madhav. Hope this helps, and thank you for listening.